The Prophet Muhammad called the hardest day off my life had come in a hadith. He said, "The people who suffer the most are the prophets." Imagine being caught in heavy rain like it's pouring from the sky, but now imagine it's not rain but stones falling on you. It's hard to even think about that. No place to hide and stones hitting your body for minutes. Isn't that a scary thought? That's exactly what happened to Rasulullah. He went through a pain that no one else had faced before. His body was full of wounds and blood, and about that dark day said, "It was the hardest day of my life. This painful journey was the journey to Taif." Islam had been there for 10 years. Rasulullah had tried everything, but only around 300 people had become Muslims. Some were in Mecca, some were in Habasha, Abyssinia, and a few were from other tribes. They were all separated, and because of Quraysh's harsh behavior, it was almost impossible for them to live together. Compared to the population of Mecca, they weren't even 1/10, and across the Arabian Peninsula they were an even smaller group. But the goal wasn't just Arabia, it was the whole world. Even after 10 years, the people of Quraysh hadn't changed, and as long as Muslims were few in number, Quraysh's attitude wouldn't change. There needed to be a new land where Islam could spread more easily to more people. This new place had to be close to Mecca and also have strong connections with Quraysh so that accepting Islam would be easier. For this reason, the Prophet chose Taif, which was 120 km from Mecca. Taif was famous for its gardens and vineyards. It also had strong trade relations with Quraysh, so if Taif accepted Islam, it would be easier to spread the message in Mecca too. With this hope, the Prophet of Allah took his adopted son Zayd and started the journey to Taif by foot. They walked because after 3 years of boycott, the Prophet didn't even have a riding animal left in Taif. There were 3 brothers who were leaders, Abd al-Masud and Habib. The Prophet first wanted to speak with them. He told them that he was a prophet, invited them to Islam, and asked for their support in spreading the message. This was a huge opportunity. If they believed many people in the region might follow them, they could be the reason for so many people to become Muslim, and then maybe even Quraysh would accept Islam more easily. They could have become the key to many closed doors, but they refused this chance and pushed it away. Worse, they mocked the Prophet in a very disrespectful way. What they said was even worse than the words of Quraysh. One of them said, "If Allah really chose you as a prophet, then I must have stolen the cloth of the Kaaba." This was a very serious insult among the Arabs. Another said, "Couldn't Allah find anyone else to send as a prophet? We seek Allah's protection from such words." The third one said, "By Allah, I will never speak to you if you are truly a prophet sent by Allah. Then by rejecting you I would be putting myself in great danger. But if you are lying and claiming to be a prophet, then there's no need for me to talk to a liar." Their hearts were full of darkness. Every word they said hurt the heart of Rasulullah. He left them. He stayed in Taif for 10 days. He went from house to house and spoke to the leaders of Taif. He told them about his mission, but the result was always the same. If the leaders didn't believe, the people didn't come close either. The people of Taif were slowly losing their patience with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were afraid that the young people might change their minds and follow him, so they said, "Leave our land and go wherever you want." When your own people didn't accept your words, "You came to us, we will stay away from you as much as we can. We will never accept what you say." Can a whole tribe be this hurtful? But this wasn't the worst thing they would do. They gathered street troublemakers and children of all ages. They lined them up along the road. Each one held stones in their hands. On that dark day, the Prophet of Allah faced something he never expected. Very soon they started throwing stones without mercy. Stones spit insults, laughter. It was a terrible moment. They ran after him and they didn't stop stoning him. We don't even know all the harsh words Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard that day because they were too painful to be repeated. Zayd tried to protect the Prophet with his own body, but it was useless. Stones were coming from every direction. He cried out, surprised face, "People of Taif, do you know that the person you are ninjas a prophet?" He didn't care about the stones hitting him, but the ones hitting the Prophet hurt him deeply. Both the Prophet and Zayd were covered in blood. After some time, the pain became too much and the Prophet had to sit down. Imagine this, a 50-year-old man going through He wasn't young, he had no energy left, but the cruel people didn't stop. They forced him to stand up and kept throwing stones at him. They were laughing and enjoying it. His legs were bleeding. Every stone was painful and every step was painful. When he fell down, they picked him up again and continued. This happened again and again. It's hard to even say it out loud. Over 2.5 command, more than 3,000 steps. All of this happened on that long road. Zayd's head was injured and bleeding. Still he kept thinking about the Prophet and said, "I wish all these stones had hit me instead." Finally, at the end of the road, they found a vineyard. They quickly ran inside. After a few minutes they were finally safe, but they were exhausted and bleeding everywhere. Zayd bin Haritha looked at Rasulullah and it broke his heart. How could it not? Your prophet is sitting there in blood and pain and you can do nothing. At the edge of the vineyard, they had a short moment to rest. They wanted to wash their wounds and clean themselves. Just imagine that moment. He had recently lost his uncle who used to protect him. Then he lost his wife Khadija, the one who always gave him comfort in hard times, and now this had happened. Do you know what the prophet did there? He knew that the only true comfort is in the presence of his Lord. He made wudu, prayed 2 rakas of salah, and raised his hands to the sky. He poured out his pain and suffering to his Lord. O Allah, I complain only to you about my weakness, me helplessness, and how people look down on me. O most merciful of the merciful, you are the Lord of the weak and the one who takes care of the helpless. You are too kind to leave the hands of an enemy with bad character and a hard heart. O Allah, as long as you are not angry with me, can handle anything. Even in such a moment the Prophet was only thinking about pleasing Allah. He did not complain. He looked for his own mistakes. This world was a test. In every difficulty he only turned to Allah for help. He was the one who performed the duty of being a servant to Allah in the best way. In Surah Al-Baqarah it says, so you who believe seek help through patience and prayer. Surely Allah is with those who are patient. The Prophet of Allah was asking for help through patience and prayer because he knew that great help always comes after patience. Just after finishing his prayer, saw a man nearby. He had been sent by the owners of the vineyard where they had taken shelter. Who were they? The 2 brothers from Mecca, Utbah and Shaybah. They had watched what happened and felt sorry for Rasulullah. They sent their servant Adas with a plate of grapes. The Prophet didn't forget one thing. Who the real owner of the vineyard and the grapes washed, said Bismillah, and started eating. This surprised Adash said, by Allah, the people of this land don't know or say such words. The Prophet noticed his curiosity and asked his name. Then he said, oh, Adas, where are you from? Adas replied, I'm from Nineveh. The Prophet said, so you are from the same place as Yunus bin Matta. Adas was even more surprised. How do you know Yunus bin Matta? He asked, seeing the light in Adas's eyes. The Prophet said, Yunus bin Matta was also a prophet. He is my brother, just like all prophets are brothers to each other. This sentence meant so much. It was like a summary of everything that happened. There was no difference between him and Yunus alayhissalam or the other prophet. She was one of them. All the special traits and high character that prophets had were also in him. Now imagine we told this story to a Christian like Adas or to a non-Muslim who believes in prophets. We tell them that he invited people, was attacked like this, and yet he still worshipped and prayed, and that his whole life was full of similar events. But let's say we don't tell them his name. What would they ask first? Which prophet is this? Is he one of the prophets? But when we answer he is Prophet Muhammad from Mecca in the Arabian Peninsula, alayhi salatu wasalam, some people suddenly changed their attitude. Why, and what was Adas's reaction after what he saw and heard? A light filled his heart. He was sure that Rasulullah had come with the true religion. He said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and he became a Muslim. That moment the saving of just one soul made the Prophet forget all the pain, the insults, the cruelty, the stones, the humiliation. All of it became lighter because one person said the Shahada. Later the Prophet would say, by Allah, if Allah guides even one person through you, it is better than having red camels. Red camels were among the most valuable things in that time. So the Prophet and Zayd bin Haritha started their journey back to Mecca. The Prophet was deep in thought. He knew that things would not be easy once he returned. When the Quraysh heard about what happened in Taif, they would only make things harder. While thinking about all this, the angel Jibril appeared from the clouds and said, surely Allah has heard what your people said to you. He has sent the angel of the mountains to you. You can order him to do whatever you want. Then the angel of the mountains said, if you wish, I will bring together the 2 mountains, Abu Qabais and Kikarn, and crush them upon the disbelievers. But the Prophet gave this answer to the angel of the mountains, no, I do not want that. The only thing I want is for Allah to bring from their descendants a generation who will worship him without associating anything with him. Now imagine you've been insulted and stoned by street thugs for 2.5 command. You can't defend yourself. If we were in that position and Jibril's words were said to a swollen, we say they deserve it and let anger take over. And this was not Denito, a normal person. It was done to a prophet, but he was the prophet of mercy and compassion. His main goal was to tell people about Islam, which would bring them happiness in this world and the next. He didn't want them to be destroyed. He rejected the desire for revenge. He thought about the possibility that maybe one day the people of Taif might accept Islam. It Wasn't even certain, but just the thought was enough for him. This verse describes his beautiful character perfectly. We have not sent you except as a mercy to the worlds, and Allah did not leave that hope unanswered. Later the people of Taif would accept Islam. By the time all this ended, it was the 11th year of his prophethood. It was the 27th night of the month of Rajab. The Prophet of Allah was sleeping, unaware of what was about to happen. He was in the house of his cousin Hani. After all the hardships he had been through, he was trying to rest and recover. The past 11 years had been anything but easy. Tortures, insults, all kinds of cruelty, the years of boycott, the year of sorrow, and finally Taif's only support was Allah, and in that moment of loneliness he felt it even more deeply. Jibril had received the great command and was coming to the Prophet of Allah. One of the greatest miracles in human history was about to happen. Allah was going to give his servant the biggest comfort when he needed it the most. Isn't that how Allah's system always works? With every hardship comes ease. Suddenly Jibril arrived and woke the Prophet, but this was different from his usual visits because this time Allah was calling his most beloved servant. His presence, after all the pain and sorrow, the Prophet was being invited to a meeting that would comfort his heart and bring peace to his soul. Jibril brought a ride for the journey. It was called Barak. He helped the Prophet onto it, and where was he going to? Masjid Al-Aqsa, the sacred mosque where hundreds of prophets had lived. An extraordinary journey was about to begin. The distance between Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Aqsa is about 1,500 kilometers. Under normal conditions, this trip would take around 30 days. But this was not an ordinary journey. With Allah's permission, the Prophet ﷺ would travel that distance in seconds, because Allah, the owner of time and space, can change the rules of creation however he wills. The laws of nature apply to us, not to the one who created them. When the Prophet of Allah reached Masjid al-Aqsa, he saw an unbelievable scene. In front of him were all the prophets who had ever lived. Just imagine that scene. The Prophet had said to Addis, all prophets are brothers. Yunus is my brother. And now in that moment there were 124,000 of his brothers with him. Prophet Adam, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Musa, Prophet Isa alayhimus salam, all of them were together there. Gathering there also showed how important Masjid Al-Aqsa is for Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ stepped forward and led them in 2 units of prayer. All the prophets of the past were standing behind him, and he was leading the prayer. Why was he the one to lead among so many prophets? The answer is simple: because he was the final prophet, the one who inherited the mission of all the previous prophets. She was the complete successor to their messages and their truths. Other prophets had been sent to specific times and specific nations, but the Prophet Muhammad's message was for all of humanity, for all times, until the day of judgment. He would take over the mission off the earlier prophets and complete it, guiding all people until the end of time. Since the time of Prophet Adam, all prophets came with the same religion, Islam, but over time people changed the revelation and corrupted the beliefs. Some arrogant people changed the religion for their own benefit. The Prophet ﷺ, under the guidance of the Quran, would now call all nations, tribes, in short, all of humanity, back to Allah. That prayer and leading the prophets was a symbol of this great mission. Then Jibril took the Prophet to a special place, a rock called Hajar al-Muwalla, and from there the journey to the heavens began. The Prophet was going to pass through the 7 levels of the heavens. At each level he would witness different scenes, see the entire world of creation, and witness the high-level reflections of Allah's names. He would meet the prophets he called my brothers, and he would rise all the way to Kab al-Qawsayn, reaching an honor that had never been given to any human before. He would enter a different realm and speak directly with Allah. They arrived at the first heaven, the sky closest to earth. Jibril knocked on the gate. The angel guarding the door asked, "Who is it?" Jibril replied, "It is Jibril, the angel Asketo. You have someone with you?" Jibril answered, "Yes. Muhammad is with Meth." Angel asked, "Has he been invited?" Jibril said, "Yes, he has." Then the door was opened. When they entered, the Prophet saw a man sitting there. There were shadows on his right and left. When he looked to his right, he smiled. When he looked to his left, he cried. Jibril told the Prophet, "Oh, greet him." The Prophet gave salam, and the man replied, "Welcome, welcome. Righteous Prophet, righteous son." "Who is this man? Why did he laugh and cry? Why did he call him son?" The Prophet asked Jibril, "Who is he?" Jibril said, "This is your father Adam. Those shadows on his right and left are the souls of his children. The ones on the right are the people of paradise. That's why he smiles. The ones on the left are the people of hell. That's why he cries." Then they moved to the second heaven. The same questions were asked, and the same answers were given. The door opened. There the Prophet saw Two people Jibril said, "These are Yahya and Isa, give them salam." After the greetings, they said, "Welcome, righteous Prophet, righteous brother." Then the Prophet continued with Jibril in the third heaven. He met Yusuf in the fourth, he met Idris in the fifth, Harun in the sixth, Musa, and in the seventh Ibrahim. All of them greeted him the same way and congratulated him on his Miraj. After meeting Ibrahim, the journey continued. They reached a special tree called Sidrat al-Muntaha. This tree was unlike any other. Its roots were in the sixth heaven, and its trunk and branches extended above the seventh. Its shade covered all the heavens and paradise. It was a tree with fruits as large as jars. The tree was surrounded by the light of Allah's majesty and greatness. It was decorated with jewels like rubies and emeralds. It was so beautiful and magnificent that no other tree created by Allah could be compared to it. While reading about what happened that night in the Islamic sources, I thought, what an extraordinary experience. Then I asked myself, but how hard could any of this be for Allah? He built the sky, decorated it with more stars than grains of sand. He spins the planets at amazing speeds. Yet the earth turns without breaking apart or crashing into anything. He creates a star as easily as a flower and creates a flower with as much perfection as a planet. He brings the dead land back to life every spring, lets millions of species live together without confusion, and while doing all, He never forgets the needs of even the smallest flea. He gives it food too. No task stops him from doing another. He provides for the endless needs of endless creations all at once. Then I said to myself, if Allah has such power, how could it be difficult for him to take his prophet on such a journey? Of course not. Never so. What happened after reaching Sidrat al-Muntaha? To continue the journey, Allah sent a green ride from paradise called Rafraf. Prophet got on it and continued toward a completely different realm very close to the Arsh throne of Allah. He passed beyond everything we know into a place that no human mind can understand. Reached a station called Kab al-Qawsain. This was the moment when the Prophet of Allah came closest to his Lord. It was a meeting unlike anything in human history. Imagine it. Meet Allah, the one who created the whole universe, who gives life, who provides, who protects, and who controls everything. Now think, at such an important moment, what would the Prophet say first? How would he speak? He couldn't give salam, because salam is to wish peace upon someone, but Allah doesn't need peace from anyone. Is as-salam, the source of peace and the giver of peace. So what did the Prophet say? He said, all greetings, prayers, and pure worship belong to Allah. What does this mean? A verse of the Quran. It says, there is nothing that does not glorify Allah with praise. Everything in existence is a work of Allah's art. Each thing reflects his names and attributes. For example, when a master creates something amazing, we say this work praises its maker. Right in the same way, all creations praise Allah by the way they are made and how they work. During Miraj, the Prophet saw all these works of creation. He thought about them and he offered their worship and praise to Allah at the same time. He was also presenting the conscious acts of worship that people do, because he was not only the messenger sent from Allah to us, but also the one who carried our worship and prayers to Allah. This phrase represented all of this meaning. So how did our Lord respond? He said, which means peace be